Hello and good afternoon. My name is Chef Ibrahim, and today we're going to be talking about the flavor pairing and how can we unlock creativity in our kitchens. After today's session, you will be able to do the following. First of all, you will be able to identify the basic concepts of flavor pairing in the kitchen, and also you will be able to apply flavor pairing techniques to create innovative dishes concepts by combining both traditional and unconventional ingredients. So if we think about the question of what is flavor pairing and where does this term come from? So flavor pairing in general, in its most simple, basic meaning, it's combining the ingredients with shared flavor compounds. So if you think about traditional different flavors that you had as a kid, or maybe something that your grandmother gave you, or maybe something that you are used to see on the street in general in your hometown, this is the shared flavor pairings. Those flavor pairings usually come from two main aspects. Either it's traditional or it is based on scientific analysis, where the scientific basis of the flavor main flavors and compounds have combined to okay, this definitely works with this. Or as we mentioned, it's something that is a traditional aspect of a flavor pairing, something that you grow up with. Maybe it's something weird. So, for example, for me, where I come from, I'm originally from Jordan. So we have this fermented yogurt, and we usually like to eat it with dates. So it's a sweet with sour, with very salty type of this very rock yogurt. So this is something that I'm used to. But if I gave it to someone who is not probably Jordanian or never had it before, they probably wouldn't understand the pairing and where it comes from. And first and lastly, flavor pairings definitely enhances the culinary creativity for chefs in general and for our guests in our restaurants in general. Because when we talk about flavor pairings, for me, I have a belief right now that most of the flavors are used everywhere. Every chef has definitely used any flavor that might come up to mind. So the job is becoming harder and harder for chefs to create new dishes and to create new flavor pairings. And this is where today's session comes in hand. So when we talk about the main five flavors that we all know, sweetness. First one is sweetness. Sweetness comes from the sugar, the fructose or the sucrose, depending on the type of sugar that you are using. And it's usually when it comes to mind, the first thing that comes to mind when we're talking about sweetness, it's the energy that comes from the sugar. Second thing, sourness. Sourness is basically associated with acidity. Acidity that comes from, for example, different type of citrus fruits or ingredients, and also it comes from the fermentation of different products where acidity is developed as well. And then we have the saltiness. Saltiness, we all know it comes from different types of salt, whether you're using rock salt, Himalayan, sea salt, or it comes from different sauces as well, such as soy sauce that have a very strong salty essence and flavor. The bitterness. Bitterness usually it's associated, as we know, this is something that as human beings from the beginning of time, bitterness, we have associated it with poisonous ingredients. So that's why usually when it comes, it was used to believe that the tongue of the human being it is separated on like different levels. So the first level will taste something, the taste buds, all our taste buds. The first level of the tongue will taste something, and then the second will taste, and then so on and so forth. But this has definitely has changed throughout the time, and the science has came up to another conclusion, which is that it's not that how our tongue is distributed, is how our nervous system responds to these flavors. So, for example, the first thing that usually when you eat, if there is a bitterness flavor, the first thing you will taste is the bitterness. Why? Because usually with time, the human body has developed itself, developed the tongue and the taste buds to taste the bitterness first, whether you put it on the back of the tongue or in front of the tongue. But we taste first because we associate it with poisonous, so we can spit it out directly. But nowadays, it has become a flavor that is associated with a lot of people's favorite two things, which are chocolate and coffee and caffeine in general. And then we come to the last part, which is the umami. The umami come from the glutamates. Glutamates, um, or it's a naturally occurring amino acid that is usually derived from glutamate. So glutamates, as we know it, it comes in nature and also it comes in labs where we know it as monosodium glutamate, which is known also as the MSG that is used widely in many restaurants. So flavor pairings. When I think about flavor pairings, you have two main types of flavor pairings. You have the classical flavor pairings that usually people know, and you have the, let's say, the more extra eccentric flavor pairings. So you have your basic tomato and basil, which is in a lot of Italian dishes. You have your chocolate and your coffee that usually go well together. You're just grabbing chocolate on the go with an espresso. You have your strawberry and the balsamic, what is usually used a lot in different type of salads as well. You have your apple and your cinnamon. That definitely combines together. You have your beef and your rosemary, where you see a lot of the chefs using rosemary in their steaks. You have your lemon and your garlic that is usually also associated with fish. Those are many classical pairings that we definitely have on hand and we can definitely use while including other ingredients as well. But moving on now to a surprising but definitely successful pairings. So when we think about those type of pairings, for example, white chocolate and caviar. So have caviar, which is fish eggs, and then you have your white chocolate. Two things that are not usually associated with each other, but they work. You have pineapple and blue cheese. You have that tanginess and you have that saltiness, you have that earthiness of the blue cheese, and then you have that sourness and that edginess of the pineapple. You have strawberries and tomatoes. Well, okay, they're both red. Should they work together or shouldn't they work together? You have your mangoes and chilies. You have your a lot of chefs nowadays are including fish and seafood in their ice creams. A personal experience that I have recently experienced from one of the chefs that I worked with, where he infused oud. Oud is a in Saudi Arabia here. It comes from a tree and it's usually used for aromatics and it usually they smoke the houses and it will give that unique smell in the house. But what he did is infuse the oud in the milk to create a new dish that he was working on as a dessert. And then you have the miso and caramel. You have your bacon and your maple. You have different types of ingredients that you might not, from the first instant, think about that those will definitely work together, but they do on the long run as well. So this is the what flavor pairing is. So flavor pairing is definitely a tool for innovation that chefs use to create their own stamps or their own identity on the dishes that they are creating. So definitely encourages experimentation. So for chefs, we love to experiment. Chefs, this is one of our most favorite things to do is to experiment with food. So it's happened with me, and I'm sure it happened with a lot of different chefs that have definitely told me this. Sometimes I'm just sleeping at 4 a.m. and I wake up and I'm dreaming about a dish. It's not that I'm doing that all the time and I'm dreaming about a new dish every day, but it's definitely something that might happen with me because this is what I do on daily basis. I'm creating dishes and I'm creating new flavors. So sometimes my subconscious might tell me this will work with this. I wake up the next morning, I go to the kitchen, I put my apron on, I take out my knife, I start cutting, I start creating the dish, And then it turns out the worst dish that I have ever tasted in my life, which is okay. But it doesn't stop me from experimenting, from creating that new dish. Definitely, it leads to your signature dishes because this will help you create new dishes that are not out there in the market. That this is your something that makes you who you are, and definitely minimizes flavor clashes where you are able to reduce the clashes of the flavor. Now, when it comes to this part, the experimentation part as well, one of the most important things is do not be discouraged if the dish is not good, because it's not about that the flavor of those two, the pairing of those two flavors are not working well together. It's more about maybe the concentration of each flavor that it's not working. So maybe I need to reduce that ingredient a little bit and increase that ingredient a little bit, or maybe just add a little bit of more salt to that, add a little bit acidity, add a little bit umami or sweetness to make them work well together. So the first initiative dish might not work well, but on the long run, definitely it can work. So applying the flavor pairing in the kitchen, the first thing that you need to do is you need to start with your key ingredient. Just put it, bring a whiteboard, bring a paper, bring something that you can write on, and put that ingredient in the middle. And just start thinking of the most traditional ingredients that work well with this dish, with this ingredient. So I put it in the middle and I start connecting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 50. How many other ingredients that work well as a singular ingredient? So I put it in the middle and I connect the other ingredients together with it one by one. And then I start picturing a map. I close my eyes a little bit and I start imagining the flavors, will they work well or not? And then I start eliminating. So what I do is, does this work with this? Yes. Okay, I'll keep them and I'll put them on the side together. Does this work with this? No. Then eliminate one of them or both. Does this work with this? And keep on creating your tree, as I said. Imagine it as a family tree where you're starting with something and then you're growing outside and outside. And then the first step. And then the second step, okay, this ingredient works with this. But does the third one work with the one in the middle already, or does it not? So this is how you build your flavor pairing. Research matching flavors, definitely you have to do that. And then you have to test and refine with tasting. So testing and then tasting. So you test and then you taste. As we all chefs know the great chef Ferran Adria and his restaurant El Bulli, where he used to open for 6 months and then close for another 6 months, experimenting and trying different foods and flavor pairings together and different techniques and so on and so forth. So testing, it's an important and integral part of being able to create flavor pairings. Do not be discouraged if the first time does not work. Second, third, maybe the 10th or the 100th times, it will definitely work with you and you will be able to create that flavor pairing. One of the most important thing for me as well is the cultural influence of pairing. So Chef Massimo Bottura, in his restaurants in general, any new chef or an intern that comes to the restaurant, their duty for the first couple of months is creating the home meal that everyone eats from. And one of his main conditions is taking the extra scraps from the kitchen, also to create a dish that comes from your hometown, something that comes from you, from your origin, from your roots. Because it's important for us as chefs to stay connected to our roots. When you are connected to your roots, it's not something of a weakness. No, it shows that you might use ingredients that chefs around you have never used before. You might be, while you are young, introduced to flavors that they've never been introduced to, use ingredients that they have never used before. So this is something that you have to be proud of and represent yourself where you are from and your roots. Because traditional shapes of pairings, this is an important part where you can integrate your ingredients, the one that you used as a kid and in your future dishes, or you have been tasted, and then fusion. The fusion where it thrives with pairing knowledge. So you have your knowledge, you have the traditional ingredients, you have ingredients that you use on daily basis as a chef, and then do a fusion of all of that and come up with flavors that will wow your guests and give them that experience that they are longing for. And lastly, during our class, yani, this is the conclusion and our takeaway, which is flavor pairing, which is a bridge between tradition and innovation, where you can combine both. And it's definitely a science that needs to be built up and needs to be improved on as we go. And it's the instinct of a chef that has this amazing experience and has developed your taste buds for all those years working in kitchens and different kitchens. And lastly, flavor pairing is not just a science, it is the chef's compass for creating new dishes. Thank you very much for joining me today. Again, my name is Ibrahim and hope to see you again very soon. Thank you.